Hello class, and welcome to the video for Chapter 11 of your textbook Foundations of Web Design, Introduction to HTML and CSS. And we're going to be looking today at navigation, as you can see here on our web page. Make sure you go to Foundations of Design website so you can click on Chapter 11 and then of course download the exercise files. So I already clicked on this and downloaded it. I do need to extract the folder, so I have it right here in my downloads. Extract all. And then of course I'm going to choose the downloads folder where it's already saved, and it's going to extract, and then my files will be ready to go. Alright, so now that that's taken care of, in Komodo Edit I'm going to bring that up, and we can see here Chapter 11. When traveling to an area that's unfamiliar to you, it's helpful to have a map to navigate around with. When visitors navigate around a website, it's good to have areas clearly marked where they can find the content they want. Navigation is an essential concern as you work on the layout of your and your client's website if you were to do this as a job. So here are some of the questions you should ask when developing your website's navigation design. How many pages will your site have? What will the pages be called? Will there be sub-pages? What kind of navigation work best? Will you have breadcrumb navigation? Top, bottom, left, or right? All those different sorts of questions right there. And of course, how will it look on mobile devices? In this chapter, you're going to learn how to code and style some of these navigation types. Now, the HTML of navigation, before you get into CSS of navigation, it's best to consider some patterns in HTML for navigation content. There's unordered list, which you can see on the page there. And then, of course, there's also, it shows vertically. Why an unordered list? Well, many will say it's similar to a table of contents in a book. However, the listing of pages in your site doesn't mean the user will select the navigation in a specific or sequential order, hence an unordered list rather than an ordered list. So ordered list, basically you got numbers with it here. Could there ever be a time you'd use an ordered list? I'm jumping past the stuff in the gray box. Maybe the site is built like an instruction manual or a storybook where sequential order is essential, and to guide the user from step 1 to 2, 3, so forth. And they give an example there in the textbook in figure 11.2. And in figure 11.2 they also show step 1, 2, and 3, a numbered list. Now description lists, we've also used those. However, one could make an argument for using a description list, and I'm hoping you're following along in your textbook, where the title is the page link and a description gives a brief note about the page. And you can see an example of that in figure 11.3. And we've used this before. Now, while this could be done with an unordered list along with a generic span element, it really wouldn't be as semantically correct as using a description list, and that's why we've used that before. Now, no lists. Finally, there are even some web designers who've discussed doing away with lists altogether, and then it shows just using the links and having them side by side. While this option offers a few positives for a smaller site, they may not be enough to break the established pattern of using lists inside links for structure, because lists can provide an easier method for defining hierarchical, or whatever it is, structure for submenus. So types of navigation, basically there are two types of traditional navigation menus. We're getting close to editing files here, vertical and horizontal. And while there are other atypical and artistic navigation patterns, it is good to start with fundamentals. Vertical navigation. Now, links, as you know, structured with block level unordered list elements displayed vertically, and sites using vertical navigation when displaying long lists of departments, teams, or other selections. So first, we're going to open our folder for the chapter, and we're going to open up navvertical.html. So I'm going to go to my folder here, FOWD Chapter 11, navvertical.html. I'm going to put text wrap on here, or excuse me, word wrap. I'm going to zoom in so you can see the page properly, and then I'm going to also do a preview here for you so we can see it right there, just like that. And there's my list right there. And actually, I'm going to rotate our split view. There we go. So you can see more of the code. And you can see how it looks in the book right there in figure 11.7. Now, the first objective is to bring the list to the left side of the content from the previous chapter. So the content's down here, but we want it up here to the right. And we're going to do a two-column look. So step 11 1.1. To add the CSS rules for your navigation, open up nav vertical.css document. So I'm going to click on open or Control O, CSS folder right here, and then I'm going to choose nav vertical. I'm going to zoom in so you can see the text well along with our preview. Now, first thing we're going to add in is it says using the role attribute selector, and we haven't been using this as much the last couple of assignments, so we're going to use it more with this one. And the class selector for primary, that's why the period is there, content, sent the width and float it to the left. So I'm going to type in div, because we use div a lot here for our selections, role equal sign, quotation marks, and then main, and I use my right arrow key to go past that, and then period primary, that's my class selector, curly brackets, and then like it said, we're setting the width to 78.333333 and 3%. Don't forget that. After that, I'm setting my float to left. And then it says step 11.1.2, using the role attribute selector again with the descendant UL element selector. So we're going to put a space, select the unordered list and set the width, float the unordered list left, remove any padding, remove the bullet list style, padding, and top margin, and add margin right and left and a border right. And so we're going to add that in. The code, how it's going to look, instead of putting div, I'm putting nav, and I put down role equals quotation mark navigation. I press the right arrow twice to get past that, space UL curly brackets, and then type in width 18.333333%, float left, list style none, padding 0, margin top 0, margin right 0.8333333%, margin left 0.8333333%, and border right 1 pixel solid, and color, I can't number sign AAA. And now you'll find the navigation menu, if I refresh this, is to the left, right over here. So now it looks like this, just like our textbook, it's matching up. So this is what your code should look like so far. The second objective is to add a more clickable or touchable for mobile space around the links, because of course when people are trying to touch with their fingers, it's not as precise as using a mouse. So currently the user will have to tap right on the word to activate the link. There's nothing extra around it. So we're going to add that. Step 11.1.3. In this new rule, you'll use the role attribute selector. I'll press enter twice to set it up for my new rule. But using the descendant selector, you'll move from the UL element to LI to the anchor element, which is dealing with links. The CSS is selecting the A element within the UL list, and it shows you what it looks like on the HTML page. And we're going to apply this CSS to the selection. So now I'm going to type in nav role equal sign navigation. If you want, you might want to copy and paste the word navigation. We use it a lot in this one. I'm just going to type it. UL A curly bracket, and then display set to block, padding, put it to 6 pixels, 0, semicolon, and font weight set to bold, and save it. Now I'm trying to go through these quickly for you here in the video, but you will want to double check your things throughout and typing it. You'll notice my syntax up here, the symbol, that'll double check things for you, so that's a good way to check up here. Otherwise you can look back quickly and check yourself and compare it to this video footage. Now the display property transforms the inline element into a block level element, and we learned about that in a previous chapter, and that will span the entire width of the containing list element, increasing the clickable area to the right. The padding will increase the clickable space above and below the A element, the links, and increasing the font weight will help to highlight the navigation links. So I press refresh up here, and now you can see it's changed it. Now I can click on the links even though don't have my mouse directly over, which makes it much easier for a mobile website. And the result shows increased visual and clickable space for navigation lists. Already said that. Alright, I had to double check there. It wasn't showing it was recording. Alright, if you hover past the right of the text, you'll see the clickable area extends beyond the text, but visually, unless you highlight the area in Photoshop, you can't really tell. And it shows in figure 11.10. Alright, now step 11.1.4. Remember from chapter 5, you can help users to see this area whether they use a mouse using pseudo class hover or keyboard using pseudo class focus via CSS. So we're going to type those in here, adding a new rule. So nav role equals navigation. You could probably actually copy and paste this whole section right here because we're going to put it in here a lot. ULA focus, and then nav role equals navigation, quotation marks, closing area thing, a hover, curly brackets, and then I gotta put indent background, space, pound sign, DDD, just like that, my closing brackets. I'm going to set this to word wrap, or so you can see the text. There we go. It looks a little bit better. So these are together here, nav-role navigation. Notice I misspelled that. Make sure you're going back and double check your spelling. Navigation, ULA focus, and the nav-role navigation, ULA hover, and background DDD. It says step 11.1.5. However, don't leave out the users on touch screens. While there is no touch pseudo class, using active can help them when they press the link to see where they pressed. So what I'm actually going to do is it's the exact same rule. They show typing in a whole nother rule, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click here after a hover, comma, and then start another one. Nav role equals navigation, closing bracket, and then ULA active, just like that, and save it. Alright, right click. When it's active, it'll show it. You'll notice when I click, it changes the color. Okay, it says you've done it. Okay, while it's not taking mobile into account yet, we're going to get there. You've got the basics of styling a vertical navigation menu on the left side. Now this is optional right navigation. You can flip it over to the other side. We're going to skip past that. If you want, you can do it on your own, but we're going to skip a couple pages ahead. So I'm skipping step 11.1.5b for now. If you want to do it, go for it. Great. All right, looking at figure 11.12, it shows the right navigation, but we're skipping past that. All right, current page. Another visual cue you can give users is to inform them of what page they're on by highlighting the navigation link that corresponds to the current page. So step 11.1.6 is what we're on right now. In your example, consider the page you're on to be the home page because it's indexed, or usually you'll have index.html as your home. To help you set a style on the link, you'll need to add a class attribute with a value of current to your navigation list in 01nav vertical.html document. Now, nice thing is they've already set this up, so you can see an example of it inside of the textbook, but they already went and put that in for you. So current right here, list class current, right here before the link home. So that's already set up. You don't have to do that even though the textbook says that. So stay in CSS. Right here, I'm going to press enter to set up a new rule. Put current, period current, because class selector, oh, I misspelled. Current A, curly brackets, and then color, hashtag 333, and background, hashtag DDD, and save. And now when I refresh the page, you'll see my home link is highlighted because that's the current page. And that shows up in figure 11.13. So if you were to create an electronics.html page, the way you would set this up is the navigation list on that document would have the class current attribute and the value pair on the electronics link. So how we put current with home, we would put current actually wrapped around the electronics link, and that's how we would show it on the electronics page, and that's how you'd show it on your other pages as well. Now, responsive vertical navigation. Now, if you narrow the browser until the border on the right of the navigation menu is touching the longest link, home and garden, the layout starts to break down. In case, you might consider adding a media query to change the layout for the navigation at this point, which is what we're going to do. A media query should probably be set to change the layout when the viewport is 640 pixels or smaller. So step 11.1.7, we're going to add in that at media screen. The design goal is to now move the navigation menu from the left side to back above the content. So we have it right now here, but it's actually going to go up here if for the sizing of it. To do this, remove the float from the navigation list by setting it to none, set its width to auto so it expands to the width of the parent container, and finally remove its border on the right side with a value of none. So I'm going to type in at symbol media screen and max width 40M. Push the right arrow key to move past the parentheses, curly bracket, enter, and then I type in this nav role equals sign navigation. So we have that wonderful thing in there again, navigation, if I can spell it. Push the right arrow keys to get past it, UL, curly brackets inside of the at media screen rule, and then float, set to none, width, set to auto, border right, set to none as well, and then save. Double check your syntax. You'll notice mine is in the clear. Refresh the page. And now the content below the navigation menu needs a similar treatment. We haven't finished yet. The following rule removes the float from the primary content box and set its width to expand to the width of the parent container. So I'm going to type in this next rule right here. I push enter, div, role, notice div instead of nav, main, period primary, curly brackets, and then float set to none, width set to auto. Let's save it. And this is the final rule, adds a border on the bottom of each anchor element in the menu to aid in visually separating the links. And so I'm going to add that one in as well. Nav role equals quotation marks navigation. Right arrow key to get past that bracket. UL IL a curly bracket border bottom 1 pixel solid and pound symbol CCC and semicolon save. So those are the rules you need to enter in. Double check your syntax. Once you refresh it, you'll notice it makes it a little bit nicer for our buttons as well. But once I go and it says when you resave or resize your browser, you'll find the navigation menu is returned to the top of the page. So watch, I move this forward and it moves it up to the top of the page just like that because it went under 640 pixels. So that's how it should look. You'll notice it's adjusting to my browser size. Alright, we're moving on here. You can see in figure 11.15 a basic responsive navigation solution to a narrow viewport. We already said that. Now this is the basic solution, and you can see they have some coding there, meta name viewport. And the navigation could be pretty long for sites with a lot of page and sub-page links, which would result in an unsightly whole page of links. And you will, however, soon learn about how to address such issues. For now, you've laid the foundation. On to developing a horizontal navigation bar. Steve Jobs said in 2003, design is not just what it looks like and feels like, design is how it works. And so that kind of applies to what we're talking about. Now instead of vertical navigation, we're going to talk about horizontal navigation. While the stacked vertical display is the default for lists, horizontal navigation bars are one of the most common patterns in navigation. And you can see in figure 11.16, the Apple website navigation bar, Starbucks, and then also another website, how it is the horizontal one in figure 11.16. So in your 02 nav horizontal document, you'll find the ordered list structuring navigation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to open up that file. I'm going to exile my browser preview. Then I'm going to exile my CSS page. I'm going to click the open button before I exit out of this because it'll open from the folder I was in, and go to nav horizontal. I'm going to exit out of this one right here, nav vertical, after I've opened up nav horizontal. I'm going to zoom in so you can see all the text here, and I'm also set my word wrap. And it says you're going to see this kind of navigation right here. So nav role, navigation, UL class primary nav bar, LI class current. So these are all things that fit. And then of course we have our links right here. So moving on to step 11.2.1. First thing I'm going to do before I do this, I'm going to do the browser preview. I'm going to remember for this selection, I'm going to have it along the side here. So you can see it should look like this when you're working on it. And in this first step, in your nav horizontal.css document, so that means we need to open it up. So I click the open file button up here. Oh, hang on a second. First, let me click on my HTML file. Then I click open. Now it'll work. Nav horizontal CSS. So right here, CSS folder, nav horizontal, open. I'm going to zoom in for the sake of the video. And then I'm going to set my word wrap on here as well. And then right down here is where I'm going to start putting in code. So first thing I'm putting in is nav bracket role equals navigation. What a shock. UL curly bracket, and then I have a lot of rules to put in. Border, I'm saying to 1 pixel, solid, pound symbol, CCC. Border width, 1 pixel, 0. List style, set to none. Margin, set to 0. Padding, set to 0. And then text, align, center. And I save it. Double check your syntax up here. The first rule set above simply styles the unordered list a little bit by removing the padding, margin, and bullets, and centering the text and adding a border on the top and bottom of the navigation bar. And so you can see it did just that. Now I'm going to add in this next rule it shows here. So nav bracket role equals quotation marks navigation. Right arrow key to get past that. LI, curly brackets, and then display, and setting it to inline, and semicolon. I'm going to save it. The second rule set transforms the display of the block level list elements. By default, they expand to the width of the containing element and create a new line, but display inline turns them into inline level elements that sit alongside one another on the same line. So you can see how it's changed. It's all in one line, inline, next to each other. See the sidebar about using a float in this instance. And you can see figure 11.18, it shows that. Figure 11.19 is talking about the float property. So step 11.2.2 is what we're looking at now. The next step is to add some clickable space to the links. So I'm going to add a new rule here. Nav bracket role equals quotation marks navigation. Right arrow key A. We're dealing with our links. Curly brackets, enter. Display, inline, block, padding, 0.625 m. And then line height, 2.75 m, semicolon. And I'm going to refresh my browser so you can see this. The inline block value, if you remember from chapter 9, allows you to render an element as inline but with some block level abilities, which is perfect for styling elements, the links. Adding the padding to the left and right and increasing the line height centers the text nicely and provides more area to click and to tap. And you can see that hopefully in yours as you're finishing typing this in. And you can see it figure 11.20. Now we're going to type in another rule here. Not caps lock, excuse me. Active curly bracket color hashtag 333 and background set to F7A236. And now you can see when it's active and you hover over it or click on it, excuse me, you can see it changes the color just like that. Now In step 11.2.3, which is what we're on now, pause if you need to. If your navigation bar was small enough to fit to the right of the site name or logo, you could set the width for both the H1 and the navigation bar and float both elements. And we're going to do that right now. So I set it up for a new rule. H1, curly brackets. Actually indented a little too far. Okay, width 48.33, 33, and then percent symbol. And float set to left. And then I'm going to set up another rule after this H1. Nav, bracket, roll, equals, quotation marks, navigation, UL, curly brackets, width 48.333333 percentage, float, left, margin, top, 10 pixels, semicolon. Don't be afraid to pause as I'm typing through this. This will now place the name and menu bar on the same level. And you can see that right here. I have my navigation horizontal, and then the menu bar is right over here to the side. Now, look at the next page. Responsive horizontal navigation. The final goal will be to address responsive design as the screen narrows. When the width of design hits 693 pixels, the navigation bar moves to 2 lines, and you can see this in figure 11.23. This could be a good time for a media query to adapt your layout, which is what we're going to do. Step 11.2.4. While you may not realize it, you already know the solution to this problem. We've already done it. Simply remove the float for the navigation bar and the H1 at a screen width of 694 pixels or less, and transform 694 pixels into M by dividing it by 16. But you already knew that from chapter 10. So we've worked on this kind of stuff before. So at media, screen, and max width 43.375 M, right arrow key, space, curly brackets, enter H1, comma, nav, bracket, roll, equals navigation, or quotation marks, navigation, right arrow key to get past that, UL, curly brackets, and then we're entering in a bunch of rules. So width, auto, float, none, margin, bottom, 5%, and save. I'm going to refresh the page, and the results allow the navigation bar to slip under the header as it gets smaller, and you can see it looks just like that. So it's doing just what we need to. Double check your code as you go through. Always look at the syntax symbol to make sure you have it correct. However, you'll notice that the width is becoming too narrow for the navigation bar to retain the single line for the horizontal layout. When viewed on the phone with a viewport width of 320 pixels, the design is still functional but does not look as appealing. So we're going to change some things. Step 11.2.5. One solution would be to add in one more media query. I'm setting up for a new rule that would revert your list to a vertical display. So I'm going to put down at media, screen, and max width 22.5 M divided by 16. The pixel number, curly brackets, enter nav, bracket, roll, equals, quotation marks, navigation, right arrow key, list, A, curly brackets, display, set to block, border, bottom, 1 pixel, solid, hashtag CCC, semicolon, and save. This gives you, if you refresh, a vertical navigation bar with some lines to help visually separate each clickable box, and you can see this in figure 11.26. So when it goes under it, you can see it looks like this here, which makes it look a lot nicer when you're looking at it on a phone browser. And then we see in our textbook, can you believe what you just accomplished over these few pages? You've styled a vertical navigation menu. You styled a responsive navigation menu. You styled horizontal navigation menu. You made a horizontal menu responsive. You highlighted a link to indicate what page the user is currently on, and you help those on touch devices to get a visual response when they tap on the link. While you can use those vertical and horizontal menus for any website, vertical is primarily used for long menus and horizontal for shorter menus. more responsive navigation. It says we only scratched the surface. You can look at it on the website responsivenavigation.net if you want to look further. And then they talk about a few other navigation patterns here very quickly at the end of the chapter. We have breadcrumbs. You've heard probably the story, the fairy tale. I'm kind of summing up what's in your textbook of Hansel and Gretel, of how Hansel leaves a trail of breadcrumbs to follow to find their way back home as he and his sister are marched deep into the woods by their stepmother and father, who apparently doesn't have a backbone. Anyways, if you haven't, read the story and you'll learn, because you need to learn about breadcrumbs. And in figure 1127, which you should look at in your textbook, you can see what it looks like. Basically, it's letting the viewer see where they are in the website. So if they want to go back to a certain page, and then of course there's drop-down menus, and they can be simple or complex. And you can see a figure in figure 1128, a version of a drop-down menu, where basically you click and a menu shows up. And then there's also a sitemap, is a list of links to pages accessible to the users, and this can be useful for search engines indexing your site for search results, so like if Google uses it. While you can code a sitemap by hand, for larger sites that could be very time consuming. Some content management systems will develop a sitemap for you using server-side scripting. However, there are free online tools, and it gives a website that you can use available to create a sitemap for you that can be submitted to Google to help when their bots crawl or index your site. Although there's no guarantee as to the benefits, you certainly won't be penalized for trying. Then they talk about search boxes. You've used this before. I mean, that's basically what Google is. Another way to find content on a site, besides using navigation bar, is to use a search box. And that, they show the coding there. And you can even make a custom one by going to google.com/CSE. So wrapping things up, well, that's it for the foundations of developing navigation for your website. By now, you can develop a vertical or horizontal menu and add a responsive design as well. Do you think you could go back in chapter 10 and make the navigation menu there a horizontal responsive menu? A solution is provided in the chapter 11 folder download. Next up will be the basics on forms. While it takes more than HTML to get them to work, it's good to know some of the rudiments of creating a contact or search form. Make sure you finish this. What you're going to do is, once you have finished everything here that I've covered, you're going to save your files, zip up that folder, include your last name on the folder. So if I were to go into the folder I created for this assignment, there we go, folder for the assignment, I would need to go and add here at the end my hyphen and my last name, so Rogers, whatever you would put for yours. Do that. Zip this file up. I can't edit it because this is currently open here, but then you would zip up the folder and submit it through eLocker at the end. Great job following along. Hope you follow along with your textbook. You want to do this because it's going to help you when you go to work on the assignments. It's going to take less of looking at the textbook on your part and help you out. Have a great day. That is the end of this video for Chapter 11 of your textbook.